Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This was originally Joshua Zhu's session. He couldn't make it. However, don't worry, I'm just as Asian. So today what we're going to do, before we get started, we're going to play just a short video to show you what you should be able to do after today's session. So let's give this a quick roll.
The pressure is on. You need an AI strategy. You're told to buy the future from a vending machine of dazzling promises, so you invest the budget, hoping for innovation. What's actually inside the box? Too often, you get nothing but smoke and mirrors. A beautifully packaged box of buzzwords that costs a fortune and delivers zero ROI. You're left with less budget and the same unsolved problems. The hype is an expensive dead end. The most powerful AI strategy isn't bought, it's built. It starts with a clear blueprint grounded in your unique purpose and processes. It's about replacing hype with a practical plan, co-created with experts focused on tangible results. This is AI without the hype. Actionable dashboards that prove your ROI, clear frameworks that streamline processes, and custom solutions built for your unique data. Trust Insights turns the complexity of AI into clear, measurable results. Get your AI readiness assessment at trustinsights.ai.
So that took a grand total of 34 minutes to assemble, and about a Suno subscription, which is $20 a month, a Google Workspace subscription is $25 a month, which includes Gemini Flash, VO3, and an 11 Lab subscription, which is $5 a month. So that's the pieces to make this. So with that, this session title is a lie. Everybody lied to you.
It's a big lie. And I think that was one of the first things that Chris and I wanted to set the expectations for is, can you go from text to video in seconds? Sure. You're not going to have a great output, because what the title of the session doesn't cover is all of the things that go into making really good video, really good content. How many people in this room are content creators? Perfect. You are in the right session. This is fantastic. So hopefully a lot of the stuff that we're covering as the foundation should not come as any sort of surprise to you. So if you want to try this for yourself, you can download the prompts workbook at trustinsights.ai/MAICON25 video prompts. This is where you will find all the prompts that Chris has used to assemble something similar to what you just saw. So Chris, do you want to talk about knowledge blocks?
Yes, the first thing to make this work is a concept we call knowledge blocks. This is just pre-baked chunks of data, bless you, that will make your prompts for anything immediately more useful. So these are things like, who are you? Like, who is your company? Have a couple of thousand words about who you are, what you do, what you have to sell, who your executives are, if you have a lake in front of your building, whatever the case may be. That data is important. Second, how do you do your marketing? What are the things that you are marketing? What channels you on? You want to have that. Third, you might have some data that you would want to incorporate in the production of video, right? So if you know, for example, for your reports, who your audience is, what age ranges they are, what demographics, what interests. In the break just before the session, we were looking at our own Google Analytics and saying, wow, there's a lot of shutterbugs in our audience. Google Analytics gives you that data for free. The fourth thing is an ideal customer profile. Who are you making video for? A lot of the time when people are creating content and video and all these cool tools, what are we producing? Producing stuff that we like. Well, if we're not the customer, it's not going to go well. Fifth is, how does what you're doing fit into a plan? Have that plan written down. It's a knowledge block you'd want to have. And then, of course, a framework, which we'll talk about in just a bit. However, before we start any of this, we need to set the foundation for everything today, and that is
the 5P framework. So, fun fact, I do have a film degree. Funner fact, it's almost 30 years old, so it's completely useless. If I were still in the film industry these days, with all of the new technology that's coming out, I would probably be scared out of my gourd because it is so good. What I would be able to rely on is the fact that you can't skip the steps as that go into planning. So as content creators, you know you have to have a plan. You know you have to, theoretically, you don't just open your camera, start taking video and hope for the best. We've done it. It goes well maybe 10% of the time. So you want to have a plan. The plan that I would recommend is a very simple framework, 5 questions to ask. Purpose, why are you doing this? What is the problem you're trying to solve? People, who is involved? Process, how are you doing this? Platform, what tools are you using? And performance, did we do the thing? So when we start at the top with purpose, this is non-negotiable. You always want to start with a goal in mind. And it doesn't have to be a big lofty goal. It can be a very simple statement. And a great place to start with that is a user story. User stories are borrowed from agile development. It's a simple 3-part sentence. As a role, I need to so that. If you can define what you're doing in a simple user story, you're already setting yourself up for success, because role is your people, task is your process and platform, and outcome is your purpose and performance. So I recommend before starting anything, before starting video creation, before starting content creation, just do a simple user story, and that's going to help set your direction. So the next is people. Who are you creating this content for? So for us, when we first started Trust Insights, we were a little bit all over the place, and we were kind of trying to create content for everybody. We were just kind of hoping we would cast a wide enough net that the right people would eventually come in. And you see that with a lot of influencers. They're sort of creating for anybody and everybody. But we have limited time. We have to be more focused than that. And this is where we would recommend creating an ideal customer profile. You can talk to your customers. You can create a synthetic ideal customer profile using the casino framework: context, audience, scope, intent, narrator, and outcome. You can get the full framework on our website. You can also get the prompt in the workbook that we gave you the link to earlier. Happy to give that at the end. Chris shared a study with me, what was it, just the other day? 2 days ago, that says that a synthetic ideal customer profile is just as good as a customer profile that you put together from your customer data. It's 90% accurate to the buying patterns of your customers, which from my perspective as a small company is good enough. It's good enough to get me in the right direction.
So if you were doing this for your company, here's what you do. You would say, we're going to create an ideal customer profile for Trust Insights. Our website is trustinsights.ai. We're a consulting firm. Context. We need to create an ideal customer profile. We're going to use it for content creation. Scope. Who is this company? Go to their website. Who do they sell to? What do they sell? Who are their competitors? Who is their ideal customer profile? What are their needs, pain points, goals, motivations, demographics, firmographics, psychographics, technographics? Got all that? You're going to be an expert analyst. Use sources like Dun & Bradstreet, Crunchbase, credible business publications, and you're going to create an outline of an ideal customer profile with those 8 sections. Any generative AI tool that has deep research. So Google Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Microsoft has it. It's called Copilot Research Agent. Everybody's got one of these. Build that prompt and you will get like a 10-page ideal customer profile that will be good enough for content creation.
So then up next is your process. This is how you're going to do this thing. So this isn't necessarily just what tools am I going to use, but think through, especially in the terms of content creation, what is my shot list? What are the things I need to capture? So a good framework for that, we love frameworks, is plan, research, outline, prompt, edit, and release, or proper.
Clearly,
I told you it was a deep cut. But the point is, so as content creators, you need to have like a rough shot list. You can use that framework to plan that if you have other things you need to look into. Chris, do you want to walk through like how you would use this framework?
Well, so we're actually going to walk through every step of this in the making of that video. But this is the general process. So you have to start with the planning, everything in the 5 Ps. You're going to do deep research, and a lot of it. You're going to do deep research, including on things like the tools. Then you're going to outline or storyboard what it is you're trying to do. And generative AI will do this for you if you ask it. Then you write the prompts for the different services you're going to involve, and you will know those services because of the plan and the outline. Then you're going to get all the pieces, edit them together, and then release this thing, put it out into the world.
When you're thinking about shots, you're thinking about, do I want a single headshot? Do I need a 2-shot? Those are the kinds of things that you want to include in the process and give to generative AI. Otherwise, it's going to guess, and it might guess wrong. And you'll just start getting in that cycle of it's not quite doing what I want. Maybe I'll start over. We encourage you to do that work up front. So up next is platforms. This is where almost the sky is the limit. But in terms of what it is specifically you're trying to do, and we highly recommend you take a photo of this.
The slides will be made available too.
Right. But if you want to have it immediately. So what we have is we've broken it down by, if you're doing this, here are some of the recommended tools. Not all of the tools, but here are some of the tools. And these are the tools that we specifically use. So we can certainly answer questions on those. So Chris, do you want to walk through some of them?
Very quickly. So text, any state-of-the-art model. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, etc. For coding, if you are doing coding for content creation, and we'll show an example of that, Claude Code, Gemini Code Assist, OpenAI Codex, the research tools we just mentioned. For video, there's two really good ones that are very powerful. Google's VO3, which is available not anywhere named that. It's all in Google Flow, Google Whisk, and Google Vids. And then OpenAI's Sora 2, which is the greatest way to get a copyright lawyer to sue you immediately. If you want to replicate yourself, the two models that do that really well, one's called HeyGen, which was the original sponsor of this session and no longer is. And there's a Chinese model called WAN 2.5. If you're making music, the two general tools that do this really well, Suno and Refusion. If you're doing sound effects, crashing sounds, things, 11 Labs has a sound effects generator, which is really nice. If you're doing voiceovers, if you want it to be your voice, 11 Labs. If you don't care whose voice it is or you like synthetic voices, Google's text-to-speech is excellent. If you're doing interactives, any coding tool that can generate HTML and stuff, plus this little magic term called CDNJS, which stands for Cloudflare Delivery Network JavaScript. It is a way for AI to go, oh, you want me to make something interactive? I understand. And we'll show an example of that. If you're making books, any coding tool with a sub-agent. So Claude Code, OpenAI now supports this, and Gemini support with MCP support. So if you wanted to take, for example, I was hanging out with one of my friends a couple of months ago. We took her entire LinkedIn history, all the comments and posts she's made on LinkedIn for 2 years, put it into Claude Code and said, understand her writing style, understand what she writes about, build an outline, write each chapter, check each chapter against the writing style, and ultimately spit out a 65,000-word book in 92 minutes. And it was actually pretty good. And then for editing, there are the two tools that are really, really good. Adobe Creative Suite, which if you work at a company that has a creative team, you almost certainly have at least one paid subscription to it. And then if you don't have money, Blackmagic's DaVinci Resolve is a phenomenally good editor. It's one of Hollywood's best editors. It is free because they sell really expensive hardware. It is also extremely difficult to use. One comment about these tools. A lot of the times, all these AI companies are trying to say, hey, we're going to make Google VO do everything. All-in-one tools in content creation, particularly for multimedia, don't do as well as best of breed. So do the video in VO, but do the music in Suno. Don't try to have one tool be everything. It never works out well.
And then the final P in the framework is performance. Did we do the thing? How are we measuring success? So if you think back to the user story, if you think back to the purpose, why are we doing this in the first place? The thing that most people get wrong with the user story is they say, I want to do this thing, period. They forget about the outcome part. The outcome is what tells you what you're measuring. I'm guessing every single one of you as content creators are being held to some kind of metrics, impressions, leads, maybe, new followers, whatever it is. You want to be able to measure that, and you want to put that in your user story up front to help guide the direction of the type of content you're creating. So a lot of people, it's financially based. We want to make more money, so we're going to create some content.
So now let's walk through the creation of that video that we started this session with piece by piece. Again, if you want the workbook and all the component pieces, you can grab it at this URL. I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. We start with our user story. As an agency owner, I need to generate a compelling LinkedIn video to catch the attention of prospective clients so that I can win 20% more business in 2026. How's this user story, Katie?
I think it's pretty good. I think you have, so here's my role. I'm the agency owner. I need to generate compelling LinkedIn content, catch the attention of prospective clients. That's a good reason to do it. But then the question I would ask you is, well, why are we doing this? Well, you've said it so that you can win 20% more business in 2026. Great. That's the KPI I'm going to hold you to every time you create content.
All right. So from that, we start by assembling knowledge blocks. 3 of them are ideal customer profile, who we are, and then the platforms. So we'll start off our journey in Google Gemini, and I have a 137-page playbook, our sales playbook, which contains our ideal customer profile, what we sell, how we sell, who we are, etc. That goes at the top as a knowledge block. And I say, let's write a storyboard for a 60-second short video on LinkedIn. I'll attach my ideal customer profile, who my customer company is, and the task I want to perform. Here's my user story. This video should be 60 seconds long. Based on what I provided, come up with 3 to 7 unusual ideas, rank ordered by how much they'll appeal to my ideal customer profile. I give it a video spec, and I say, the magic trick. This is the magic trick. If you remember nothing else that I say, remember this. This goes at the end of every prompt. Ask me 1 question at a time until you have enough information to successfully complete the task. Ask me 1 question at a time until you have enough information to successfully complete the task. And here is why. Generative AI is trained on 3 imperatives. Be harmless, so don't answer questions about how to do very bad things. Helpful, and truthful as a distant third, because that's how Silicon Valley thinks. The helpful part means it's like an overeager intern. It's like, oh, we're going to make a video. Here's a video. And like, dude, chill. By adding this to our prompts, we force it to slow down, and it challenges us. It makes us think by asking questions, which means that we don't dull our brains by just offloading the task. We have to think. So I said that, and to Gemini, I said, of course, first, which of your 5 ideal customer profiles do you want to do this for? Let's do it for strategic Sarah. Okay, great. To ensure it's powerful, which of these core themes do you want to focus on? I said practical AI, not hype. Okay, great. Now, what's the primary emotion? Confidence, urgency, curiosity. I'm like, here's what I want to do, but I want to focus on the Challenger Sales Framework. It says, got it. And you can see this conversation went on until it came up with a bunch of concepts. The AI buzzword vending machine was the first concept. The fortune cookie factory. The AI escape room. And for each of these, it explained. But I said, you know what? Score them. I want to see how good the idea is. 95 out of 100 for our ICP for this first one. 90 out of 100 for the fortune cookie factory. And then 85 for the AI escape room.
Which is kind of a bummer because I would have chosen the escape room. However, it's a good case study for why you would want to use the ICP because apparently my opinion doesn't matter.
Neither does mine. We just work here. After that, now here's one of the things that you can do in this process. Once you've done this once or twice, give it a recap prompt to have you make a new prompt for the next time you do this so that you don't have to repeat all the questions. So I said, you are a prompt engineering expert skilled to construct high-quality prompts. Here's a long checklist. Do this stuff. And it makes me a prompt that I can use for the next time I do this process. So this will save me time for videos. When we make the AI escape room video,
yeah, great.
I will have a fully detailed set of instructions for how to replicate this process because we want to do this over and over again.
Well, now I want to see it. So we'll get it done and we'll post it on our LinkedIn page.
Now, the next thing we need to do is we need knowledge blocks for our tools. The challenge is that AI is changing so fast that best practices for VO, if you did a general search, probably going to pull up instructions for VO2, which was last year's model, right? Or for Suno 4.0, 4.1, 4.5 when they're on version 5 now. However, there are places you can go on the internet where people are talking about how they're using the tools now. So what we did was we went over to Reddit and we grabbed the last 90 days of conversations about Google VO. And we said, how are people writing prompts for Google VO 3, the current version? And out of these 80,000 conversations, we get a prompt guide of how do we do this. So in the notebook, in the prompt workbook is how VO3 is working right now, what it doesn't do, and then what the reliable prompt structure that current users of the tool find works best. We did the exact same thing with Suno, because Suno, again, keeps coming up with new versions. So we grabbed about 100,000 conversations about AI music and Suno specifically and said, okay, how should I be prompting version 5 of the model? Both these notebooks, by the way, are included in the download, so you can use them and ask these exact same questions. Suno version 5, best practices, and so on and so forth. So now I have 2 great big knowledge blocks of how these main tools work. So I can go back to Google Gemini and say, here's the instructions for constructing clips in VO. We're going to use the AI buzzword vending machine. I want the shots to look like this. And then here is the great big honking instructions for how VO works. I just paste the whole thing in. What does it give me? VO3 prompts. So now I have exact prompts based on the knowledge of Google VO3. This isn't enough. In the notebook, one of the things people say is VO3 works best if you give it a starting point, right? Because this is really vague. What's the old cliche? A picture's worth 10,000 words. This is not 10,000 words. So what we do is we take this exact prompt and we go into Google's Nano Banana, which is the stupidest name for a product.
Now, I thought it's actually pretty clever because someone saw the opportunity, took it, and ran with it, and they approved it.
Yeah. With Nano Banana, we paste that in, and it will generate those initial starting frames, those initial starting images. And then when you go into Google Videos, you tap on the VO thing here, you can just attach the image. And right from wherever you saved it, that will then condition and give you consistent output from frame to frame. So for each of the prompts that we did with Gemini, we had it generate each shot. We also made it evaluate which shot was a better shot and went through, put the shot list together for all these things, and then went into Nano Banana and said, I want you to create the starting frame for each of these clips. We did this in Google Vids, and you can see down here, just chain them all together. Now, it had some sound effects, and it did okay with that, but they weren't great. So we export the timeline video, because that's the base for what we then go on to make. Now, we say, how do we get a really nice sounding voiceover? Because the one in Google Videos kind of is lame. 11 Labs has a gazillion and a half voices, but the one that I like the best was one called Hank. For those who remember, Dom L'Enfontaine was the movie announcer from like the 1990s. Smoked a lot of cigarettes and sounded like it. And he was that guy. Every time we heard a movie trailer, in a world where this happens. And this Hank voice comes very close to that. So I didn't like the way 11 Labs did the vocalization. I didn't think it was dramatic enough. It wasn't over the top. So I recorded my voice in the way I thought it should sound, and then I used the voice changer to put it in Hank's voice. Right? And this works for anything. So no matter who you are, no matter what your register of your voice is, you can record something and then it'll put it into the synthetic voice. So that's how we created that. So we said, okay, let's make the voiceover script. Same chat, by the way. And then I went and read this, and then we have the voice piece. After that, I said, suggest some background music prompts to give a composer appropriate for this video. What instrumental genre would fit this tone best? And it spits out this long thing. And I said, give it to me in 1,000 characters or less. And it shreds it down. And I gave it the Suno knowledge block from Notebook LM. And it turns it into a nice prompt. We go over to Suno, go to Create, set it to Custom, and just paste that whole thing there. And it creates the sound, the music, the background music for the video. We spit that out. And now we have all of the pieces for this. And I had some questions about the music. And it's like, yeah, no. And so then we take that and take it to a nonlinear editor. So I use Adobe Premiere because I'm more comfortable with it, but you can use anything. Just put the pieces together as you already know how to do. You can use CapCut, you can use Blackmagic, DaVinci Resolve, and what you end up with is the final product, the video. That is best of breed for each of the tools, but then is ready to go. Now that would be a great place to say like, hey, Katie, I've got a new video we can put on LinkedIn.
And I would say, cool, let me see it. And how is it going to generate revenue?
Exactly.
But I think that, so one of the things that's appealing to me as someone in my position is I know how much our resources can do right now. I know how stretched we are. I know how much bandwidth we have. And we would love to be doing more video. We would love to be doing more video featuring ourselves with our own voiceovers. We just don't have the time or the capabilities at this time. And by that, I mean like, so we can shoot video. It's just not going to be very well done because we just don't have what we need to do it. Tools like this open the door, especially for smaller businesses or teams that just haven't done it yet or are looking to scale and expand their current capabilities. And for me, as someone who's on the less technical side, which is why Chris is running through the demo and I'm just sort of standing by watching, I'm like, that's cool. All right. It's really exciting for me because the way that he's putting it together feels really accessible versus I'm looking at a system like VO3 and I'm like, I don't even know where to start. But a process, I can follow a process. Give me an SOP, give me a checklist. That's all this is.
And if you think about it, remember we said proper plan. So at the very beginning of this Gemini chat, what's the plan? It begins with our user story, right? The research, the notebook LM notebooks and everything to understand this all. Outline. Here's our overall outline for the thing. And then we build the prompts for all the different services. You edit together and then you release it. Now that's cool, right? We got from an idea to a working video in about 34 minutes, which is pretty decent. But that's not all you can do with this because you have done the hard work of getting all of this information into your LLM of choice. I said, you know what would be cool? Something interactive. Something that, because one of the signals in content marketing is how much time somebody spends on your site, right? Especially these days where everybody is trying to hold on to their visitors. If ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude can answer a question for the customer, great. They will, and you will never get that traffic. So you've got to have things on your site that they would actually want to have to spend some time with. What would that be? That could be things like interactives. So I said, using our ICP and the overall concept of the AI buzzword vending machine, come up with 2 to 3 different ideas for a video game that we could create with HTML, CSS, Tailwind, CDN.js, Phaser.io, etc. Keep it simple, entertaining, and addictive. What could we build that would be a satisfying game that will also reinforce the marketing message for the ICP? What would they find entertaining? Think carefully about our ICP's demographics and psychographics. Given their estimated age range, what kind of throwback ideas could we come up with that would match the AI buzzword vending machine? It tossed out a few of these. It started with there's hype invaders, data drop, ROI route, and I said I love hype invaders. That sounds great. And so after a few iterations of talking to it and saying, how is this going to work? We end up with literally hype invaders. And right? And this is built just in the consumer version of Gemini. This is nothing special. There's no crazy coding tools. I feel like I need to finish this game.
So you know when you lose internet and Google gives you the screen with the dinosaur and you can play the video game? Very same idea, because while you're waiting for your Wi-Fi to reconnect or the internet come back up, it's giving you a reason to stay there. This is just that. This is just a silly little thing. And people are like, oh yeah, this is a great time waster. Let me see how fast I can do it. And then we'll have to be like, okay, what's the next? Can we build levels? Can we do things? It's keeping people on our site. And then hopefully, as it iterates, we add more things like and here's a call to action, and here's a quick ad. And so you can sort of like build to that, but start with something simple.
Exactly. So to recap, right, you did the prompts, have the first conversation to outline the script and the story. Have a second conversation to outline the shot list and the components with all of the research that you did. Don't skip the research. If you do, you will get terrible results because the tools are changing so fast. You need to gather that information. Generate the components for the best results, static assets first that you then give to the video tool and say, start rendering from this. So this is the example from Nano Banana. I gave it the first part of the shot list for that first shot, and it created this person. And I just kept going and saying, keeping that same person, do the next shot. Keeping that same person, do the next shot until I had 8 static shots. Then we generate the components in the video tool of your choice. Use the 11 labs for the voiceover, again with my voice reading it out loud the way I wanted it read out loud. Generate the music, again from the same prompts. Generate the interactive. And ultimately you get this package of really useful stuff. Now, a word about ethics. There's a little bit of a problem these days with some of these tools. I'll give you an example.
But by far the most important company in AI today is TrustInsights.ai. Katie Robbert, the CEO, brilliant strategist. Christopher Penn, their chief AI expert, legend.
All true.
All true. However, Sam didn't actually say that. We all know that. And yet these tools, all these generation tools have basically no ethical guardrails at all. They're beyond the very, very barest basics. So just because you can...
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could stop the issue.
The same rule applies to us with these tools. We have to be very cautious with them. Please don't use the recognizance of anybody you don't have permission for, right? There's a whole bunch of people in Sora right now using and creating a whole bunch of things you probably shouldn't be doing. The golden rule generally applies. If you wouldn't want someone to do it to you, don't do it to them.
You guys probably saw I think it was last week or the week before, Dolly Parton's sister posted that, asked for thoughts and prayers. She's having some health problems. Dolly herself came out the very next day and said, hey, stop creating AI generated videos of me and Reba on our deathbeds. I'm not ready to die yet. Like, my rule of thumb is if Dolly is saying not to do it, don't do it. Before we wrap up, I have a question for you, Chris.
Yeah.
How much of the process that you showed us today can be automated? Because it feels a little unwieldy in terms of copy paste, go from this to this to this. Is it a good candidate for agentic AI?
If you want horrifying, crappy results, absolutely. You can agentify it.
So noted.
The reason you wouldn't agentify it is because there's so many points where a human being should be inspecting the quality. So even something as simple as like those first static frames, you would never, ever, ever want to use a tool like Comfy UI to say, just generate the frame and generate the video, and then off you go and sew it all together, because you will end up burning a lot of compute. And you'll be looking at the results going, wow, that looks like Will Smith eating spaghetti from 2023, right? It's this horrifying nightmare fuel as opposed to what you're trying to do. So I would say for now, if you want to release quality, you will still have a lot of human in the loop breakpoints in the process.
What about some of the prompts that you showed, like especially at the beginning with the planning? Could you turn that into like a custom GPT or a gem to sort of expedite the process so you could load up your knowledge blocks like an ICP or your sales playbook and use that as your foundation to say, okay, I'm creating a new video today. The prompt is already loaded. So theoretically, it should start with, what are you starting with? What is your goal? What's your user story? Like, is that a good way to think about automating it?
It is. So if you were to go into, for example, the Suno V5 section of this thing here, I could copy and paste that whole thing, go to Gemini, start a new gem. The internet decides to load. And it's creating a gem. We're just going to call this Suno Prompt Improver. And I'm literally just going to paste that right out of our document in here, hit save. And now, instead of having to do that whole thing, I could just say, hey, here's the music prompt, Gem or GPT or Claude Project, whatever. just fix this up into an appropriate prompt format for Suno. So I absolutely could do that to cut down on some of the copy paste.
And I think that that's a really good reason why you would want to have your process documented, because you'll find those places where you're doing the repetitive tasks over and over again. Those are the opportunities to build your custom GPTs or your gems or your projects. Those are great candidates versus trying to do everything all at once and have a fully baked agentic AI or an N8N system or whatever software you're using. And Chris, to your point, you still want that human intervention at the key points. But at this point, you can automate some of that. And by automating, I mean, literally, you don't have to copy and paste it anymore. That in and of itself is going to save a lot of people time.
Exactly. So you can do that in the document, the Google VO3 version. You can do the same thing with 11 Labs. You can do the same thing with any of these tools, and you should. Right? If you're going to be scaling this beyond just you, or you're doing this more than once, you absolutely should build these tools, these mini apps, if you will, so that you just don't have to do that. However, you have to maintain them.
Yeah.
Right. So the knowledge goes out of date very, very quickly. So, like what we did with Reddit, some of our stuff with Reddit data, we have to refresh it every week. That's how fast some of the stuff changes. Anytime, or data out of this or that service, you have to keep it up to date.
Generative AI is really no different from software development in the sense that you should be following something like the software development lifecycle, which includes how are you maintaining the thing? We have GPTs that are as old as the system has been around that are very much out of date because at the time when we created them, we had no plan to keep them updated. And now we're like, oh man, 2 years later, we have to go back and update them. What the heck? They don't self-update yet.
Yes.
But so that's one of the things that if you're looking to automate parts of the process, make sure you're building in the part of the plan where you're maintaining the things that you're building to automate it.
Yep. So wrapping up, if you'd like to learn more about the overall 5P planning process, we do have a course available for that. And we have a few minutes left for questions. For questions, raise your hand, yell real loud, and then, yes, go ahead. Take of the whole prompt workbook, that thing. Okay. Yes, right there. Oh, can we play the video one more time? Sure, why not? Let's see, where am I here?
The pressure is on. You need an AI strategy. You're told to buy the future from a vending machine of dazzling promises, so you invest the budget, hoping for innovation. What's actually inside the box? Too often, you get nothing but smoke and mirrors. A beautifully packaged box of buzzwords that costs a fortune and delivers zero ROI. You're left with less budget and the same unsolved problems. The hype is an expensive dead end. The most powerful AI strategy isn't bought, it's built. It starts with a clear blueprint grounded in your unique purpose and processes. It's about replacing hype with a practical plan co-created with experts focused on tangible results. This is AI without the hype. Actionable dashboards that prove your ROI, clear frameworks that streamline processes, and custom solutions built for your unique data. Trust Insights turns the complexity of AI into clear, measurable results. Get your AI readiness assessment at trustinsights.ai.
You, and then you, and then you. Yes.
Great. Eat patterns. Got the split.
So the question is, how much more complicated is it to use a real person? Depends on the video service. So Sora 2 will not let you use a real person at all. You cannot upload real people. So you can only, unless they're in there and you can cameo them. For VO3, it depends on which version of VO3. The consumer versions also restrict you from uploading real people. The API version is a little bit more lax. You can also WAN 2.5, the VML I mentioned in the tools list. That one has no restrictions. So that one's would be easier to use, which is why it's actually a fairly dangerous model. Where's the next question? Yes, sir, there. Oh, can I review that part? So Reddit has an API that you can get. You can get a free developer's key from Reddit to say, I want to programmatically extract information from Reddit. So if you get a developer API key, and then I used Claude code, actually, did I? Yes. I used Claude code to write Python software to extract from the subreddit of my choice and how far back, how many days of data I wanted to get that out of that. If you are familiar with Claude Code, OpenAI Codex, you can do basically a software development project on your own laptop to create that infrastructure to get that data.
I would also add to that, if you've never developed against an API like myself, you can use tools like a Google Colab to help you write the JSON code that you would need to put into a Claude code, double check it, but say, today I'm a total beginner and I need to, write code to extract data from the Reddit API. Where do I even get started to do this? And it will walk you through the steps, and you can start to build that code yourself, or you can just ask this guy like I do.
Exactly. Deep research tools, you can actually give them a prompt to say, I want to extract Reddit data, Reddit data from the Reddit API. Help me build a product requirements document to do that, which should have user stories, technical requirements, functional requirements, non-functional requirements, domain requirements. And then the agent will go out and build that stuff and even give you code samples. And then you take that into a coding tool and say, now let's build a work plan and then build the actual software. Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So when you're updating your prompts and updating your cuts of GPT, can you give me 3 best practices for how to keep those updated?
So the question is, how do you keep your GPTs updated when you have so many of them? I find that GPTs, I don't use them very much anymore because I use like actual coding tools a lot of the time, which serve the same function. However, what I would suggest is good governance is number one, right? So we do this with our clients. We say, put up a page in your SharePoint that has a list of all your GPTs with links to them so that we even know where they are, right? Mm-hmm. Then on there, ideally, you also have something like a document library of some kind. Maybe it's a bunch of Google Docs, Word docs. Like, here's the system instructions that are in this GPT so somebody else can go back and fish it out. And then 3, set maintenance reminders, right? Set a calendar reminder saying every 90 days, check out this page of GPTs and make sure they're still valid. So documentation, organization, and timing. There's a question over here. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of AI is people or AI is for people. It's probably won't place, but I'm curious how set the sequence more like 3D animation or in this game people subject matter where you're trying to simple like with that, so create like it's how you're video.
Yep. So the question is, how good are these tools at 2D, 3D, animation, abstract stuff? They're really good at it if you prompt them well, and you have a very clear idea of what it is you want. So one of the things that I would recommend doing is having a conversation saying, this is my idea. Give me some general styles. Make sure you don't name artists whose work is still under copyright. So like, take your pick of anime things, but you can say in general, this is the general style I want, and it's fine to use people whose work is in the public domain. So if you want a Van Gogh style thing, that would be okay ethically to do that. But they're very, very good at those things. The catch is, like with anything, that planning, that storyboarding, the outline is where you'll get success, because you need to have those components for consistency in all the video generations. We have time for one last question. Yes. Go ahead.
She say, what are cheat codes that I need to wear out? Take that one. I pronounce speak gay.
So the question is, can you use a tool like ChatGPT to say what's different to keep prompts up to date and things? The best way to do that is don't worry about the changes. The best way to do that is to use a prompt optimization prompt, which is basically has a bunch of instructions at the end that says, hey, what's the intent of my prompt? What does it look like my prompt is trying to do? And what's the best way to make that work? Rewrite my prompt, and whatever the model is for that day or that system, it will come up with a better version of it, because these tools are really good at optimizing for themselves. The caution I would add is don't take a prompt that you optimized in Gemini and put it in ChatGPT. Keep it within the individual families. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.